Hey, hi, hello everyone. Welcome back after long time. Yeah, sorry for the delay in between. I guess it was more than a year back when maybe I guess we shared something onto the cloud. Um, Maybe now we can just get started and maybe learn few more things onto the cloud environment. Or I can say for now, as we are going with the SAP BTP, we can go with certain BTP flavors. So the agenda that we are going to discuss today over here is a problem statement, right? So let's just go with the problem statement first. So, for example, whenever you are going in any of the BTP account, these days you would be seeing um, a error, or I can say a warning, saying the HANA Cloud instance, right? That's something maybe we discussed into our past video, has now been deprecated. So what is that? So for example, if I say I am going in my BTP environment and I'm going in my Cloud Foundry environments dev space, and within this dev space, we used to have so-called SAP HANA Cloud, right? Now, what does it say is that the Cloud Foundry edition of HANA Cloud Central is now deprecated. Instead, you are supposed to use the multi-environment edition of it. Error seems in a direction which says that earlier you used to. Let's just break down the things in this problem statement into multiple steps. It says that in this particular SAP BTP environment, what we used to do is we used to create a HANA Cloud instance which was specific to Cloud Foundry. Whereas there are so-called multi-environment instance which does not only support your Cloud Foundry, but if there are different runtime environment which are also supposed to use DB instance, then that can also be used. That can also use going forward your HANA Cloud that you would have created centrally. That's the main idea out of it. Okay. Now let's just try to understand this more deeply. I mean, we can directly jump onto the solution as well, but in order for us to understand and maybe break down and come to a conclusion or come to a solution, it's good if we can understand these terms in a deep way, right? Okay. So where this is all coming from. So for example, if we say that today what we are going to do is we are going to set up a multi-environment HANA Cloud DB instance. Okay. Now, when we say multi-environment HANA Cloud DB instance, it brings us to certain important topic of it, saying when we say multi-environment, what is it? Okay, and why is the need of going with multi-environment? Maybe you would be remembering that earlier, or I can say in our past video, we had done a setup where we were able to develop our application onto so-called Cloud Foundry, right? So which is also one of the environment. So when we talk about another environment, which environment it is and why it is called multi-environment? That brings us to a good topic which we should be understanding first called cloud computing. All these things, okay, of this development environment and all are coming from a source called cloud computing. Okay. So earlier, what we used to have is our own set of infrastructures, our own set of, I can say, um, so-called infrastructures, where we used to have so-called, let's just say, some servers, some memory. I can say, be it, let's just say, in the form of a hard disk, or let's just say, in form of some sort of a RAM. And after all those things, we used to have our own virtual server, which used to ultimately create some sort of a network in between, right? All these things used to be available on so-called on-premise environment, right? And now all this on-premise environment was a kind of a responsibility of the company or the organization who is their own IT setup to manage those and use it. Now, in order for us to make this thing more streamlined and ensure that rather than focusing on all this infrastructure, someone if can handle this infrastructure setup, handling my servers, memory, network on my behalf, then I can focus on my real business. My real business can be, let's just say, anything. So, for example, if I say my real business can be my app development, could be possible, or my real business can be handling a big multinational manufacturing organization. It could be anything, right? If we can hand over this task to someone who is having it required resource, who is ready to do all those setups, then we can uh, focus on our real business. And that's the reason this infrastructure on-premise was converted into so-called cloud computing offering called IaaS, which is called infrastructure, what we are talking about, something as a service. Okay, so when we talk about any sort of a cloud computing, the first thing that should be on our mind is something. I can say maybe you would have heard of a X as a service. Maybe you would have heard of something called X as a service. Here's what we are ideally talking about. So this infrastructure as a service ideally come into picture when you are trying to hand over your activity, hand over your load of handling those environment load to someone who is providing it as a service. Right. Once that infrastructure has been set up, I am good to go. I can now work on my application development activity. But wait, when I say application development activity, is it that straightforward? When you also bring in new PC, new laptop, it does not mean you are ready to go and maybe you can directly start with your, let's just say, even if you would like to watch a video, can you do that? That's an empty laptop just containing set of wires, set of hard disk, RAM, and servers. That's all it has. It does not have the thing that it needs in order for those required services to be consumed, right? And for that, what we need? We need something that can be executed, some sort of a software. In order for us to have those software, we need someone to develop it. And in order for someone to develop it, what we need? A platform. Or I can say in another way, a development platform. Okay. So this development platform, okay, was something that we used to develop in case of our on-premise. On top of this, all the things, what we used to have is we used to have our own set of let's just say development environment, which contains of your, let's just say some sort of operating system, plus maybe it contains some sort of a SDK and all those things which you may need in order for you to develop your softwares, right? All those things also you used to procure the license of. In case of an on-premise world, what we used to do is, I can say in case of an on-premise world, right, we used to have our own set of licenses for all this, let's just say operating system, any sort of a SDK that we are developing, and all those, let's just say if there is any operating system, all the update process, some sort of a patches, fixes, whatever are there, used to be headache of our own set of IT team who used to manage my environment. Rather than that, okay, if I can hand over this activity also to someone who has got all these licenses and everything procured, they can get the infrastructure services from somewhere, or they can have it on their own. On top of it, if they can install the things that I need for my applications development purpose, then we can call it as a some sort of a platform as a service. You can call it as a PaaS. Okay, so which brings us to a platform as a service. Our main focus over here in this environment will be over here. But in order for us to complete the understanding of the cloud computing, that's something we started. Let's just also understand one more uh, thing that comes as a service when you are going with a cloud computing called software as a service. And here comes your any of the software that you are, let's just say, getting as a service. Let's just call it as a, let's just say some sort of a software that you are using. So, for example, you can say Microsoft 365. Right, you would like to do some sort of a work in a nice Excel. You would like to do some presentation. Will you build your own software, or if there is something which has already been built, you will just directly subscribe for it. You will directly, let's just say, ask them to provide their service for maybe a month, a year, or whatever time duration. Or if there are some freewares as well, you would like to go with that, right? So in that particular case, what we are saying is rather than us building, I can say building our own software for our need, let's let's just say subscribe, or I can say pay for something, or let's just say download a freeware of, I can say, already developed software who is ready to provide you that thing as a service, and what we can call it as a software as a service, right? Software as a service. Okay. So these are the cloud computing offerings, I can say. When you go with a cloud computing, the headache of having the things on premise, on your own, handling either an infrastructure, or when it comes to platform, handling operating system, it's SDK, it's patches, fixes, licenses, or when it comes to softwares, rather than developing your own software, if there are few things which are already provided, you can also use those as a services in terms of respectively either infrastructure as a service or platform as a service or software as a service, right? So what we understood is when you ideally subscribe for some sort of a BTP environments sub account, right? BTP environment sub account, you are ideally getting some sort of a platform which are having it's ready to use platform which you can directly let's just say start using in order for you to develop your services, develop your applications. It means it's nothing but a platform, correct? Now when we say it's a platform, definitely it needs some sort of a runtime environment, right? Because it's a platform, it means you are going to develop something. For example, you are saying you are going to develop a service or an application or any other utility or some sort of a API, anything that needs a runtime environment for the execution, right? And this runtime environment for the execution that we used to use, or I can say in our earlier video as well, the one which we used was, one of them was Cloud Foundry, right? Cloud Foundry is also one runtime environment. BTP comes up default with a Cloud Foundry enabled. That's the reason you would have seen many people using a Cloud Foundry, which is also known as a CF, right? On top of it, there are multiple different runtime environment as well. So if I just go over here, you would see Cloud Foundry is a runtime environment. At the same point in time, Kaima is also one of the runtime environment, which is going to have certain similarities, certain differences, right? So I can say Kaima, we are going to have a separate videos dedicated series for Kaima runtime environment. But for now, let's just understand what this environment ideally does, what are the similarities and differences between them. So when I say this runtime environment ideally provides the necessary environment, which is a bare minimum thing for an application to run, right? One thing is clear, they are one type of a platform as a service, for sure, right? Now, when we know that, okay, it provides the environment which is required in order for my application to run, you can say that this particular environment could be consisting of some sort of a runtime setup, be it let's just say some sort of a work processes it needs, or I can say some sort of a application server capability and some sort of a DB capability as well. Today we are mainly focusing on the database capability. Right. Now, this DB capability that we are talking about was, if you observe, earlier was consumed within this Cloud Foundry environments, dev space. That's something we used to subscribe for earlier via the SAP Hana Cloud. We used to create an instance of it. Now that has been deprecated. What does it say is, if you create something within the Cloud Foundry, It will only be used within the Cloud Foundry. Tomorrow, let's just say you are saying, I am willing to also use certain extra capabilities, which is also being provided by so-called another runtime environment, Kaima. My database instance that I would have created, which was specific to Cloud Foundry, it might contain n number of data containers, it might contain n number of data, which I would have created, my user would have created, would be gone. Why can't this database can be made central? So maybe what it is saying is that rather than having let's just say, let me just draw some sort of a line over here. So for example, if I say I'm going to create some sort of a DB over here. So this is my DB. Okay. Now this particular DB can be either designed in a different way. So for example, I can have this particular DB, which may be, okay, let's just try to help you. Okay, can we send this to somewhere? Okay, let's just maybe create another one, because definitely this is not a training for. Okay, so for example, I can have my own set of a environment. This is an environment. Maybe I am calling it as a some sort of a Cloud Foundry, for example, right? Now this particular Cloud Foundry environment, which is over here, and it has its own set of a DB instance over here. Okay, now this particular DB instance is just available. I can say HANA Cloud DB instance is available only within this particular CF. Rather than that, if we can pull this out, okay, if you can pull this out somewhere where it can be more connectable. So there is an option 2, right? So in this particular option 2, what I am saying is, rather than that, if I can just simply prepare some sort of a one environment plus, let's just say, another one over here. Now this two environment can be my any sort of a runtime environment. It can be deployed on my Cloud Foundry, or another runtime environment that we are talking about could be my Kaima runtime environment as well. So if we can create a database instance in a way that it's not centrally available or created within a Cloud Foundry, rather it's a central. Tomorrow, if anyone would like to, let's just say, create a DB instance connected to CF, tomorrow if they want to switch it, or I can say I would like to change my runtime environment from CF to Kaima, that should be quite easy. That can be easily switched upon. Even both the environment at a time can also use, if I have multiple services, few services which are running on Cloud Foundry, which are running on Kaima, and both are communicating to the same database. So I have a central DB instance that can play a role over here, rather than us focusing on something which is quite central. As multiple environment are coming into picture over here, it's called multi-environment DB. Okay, or I can say multi-environment HANA Cloud DB instance. Here's what it is talking about. Maybe I hope maybe it was a bit longer explanation, but the idea is, rather than you following an instruction blindly over here without knowing what's going on, it's good to know the background of the things that you are actually doing, to know the implications of it, right? Definitely it might need, okay, if I'm creating a separate instance, earlier as it was a CF, in my last past deployment video, you would have seen that it was easily able to connect to this. How the connection will work in that case, okay? So in this particular playlist that we are releasing, you will see all those videos as well. So let's just first create a DB instance over here, which is going to be central. So we are not going over here. Rather, we are going in the service marketplace of your BTP sub account over here. And here, what you will do is you will just simply go with SAP HANA Cloud. You will just say simply create. And you are going to create a tool subscription, which is SAP HANA Cloud is your tool. You are going to subscribe for it in the form of our tools over here. And you are going to create it. The moment you create, system is going to create a subscription for it. And that particular subscription is going to help you whenever you would like to connect to it. So for example, over here, in this particular case, we have created a SAP HANA Cloud DB instance, and which would also have created certain rules on top of it that you might need in order for you to work on it. Because I can be a developer, I can be an admin, I might need different roles in order for me to work with that, right? So within this assigned role collection, you might see certain SAP HANA Cloud. If I am a database viewer, my admin can assign me just a viewer. If I am a person who is administrating that, I can do that. If I am a security guy, I might also need an access for my SAP Cloud Security Administration. So I'll just simply assign this role collection on my ID. Let's just go over here in the instances and subscription and try understanding, or I can try opening this particular cloud instance that we are going to consume in our future videos. So this is how it initially would look alike. Maybe let's just have a look at it. It's trying to logging me in, and maybe it will open a very nice SAP HANA Cloud Central. Now, when you will look at it for the very first time, you will get the same glimpse of what it used to look alike when you used to open a SAP HANA Cloud Central from your Cloud Foundry environment. The advantages over here is it's not only connected to your Cloud Foundry, it is a multi-environment that can be connected via your Cloud Foundry, via your Kaima, and there are another runtime environment, the one which just got obsolete, maybe Neo, if that's also running somewhere, that can also be connected from here. Okay, that's the main idea. That's the main reason SAP is trying to make the things in a way that they can really serve the purpose of so-called microservices. If you would have heard of that term, that's something maybe SAP is discussing too much. Maybe when it comes to giving any service on top of a BTP, they are trying to provide everything as a microservice. Their DB is now going to be that service which can be connected from anywhere rather than being a monolith from a design architecture perspective as well. Okay. So maybe that's it we had for this video. I hope you would have understood how to set up a multi-environment cloud DB, what's the purpose of that error, and how we can get rid of it. Now, going forward, we'll create an instance of it as well. We'll create a DB cloud environment and we'll see how we can create and deploy the application on a central DB rather than one which was a dev instance for my Cloud Foundry. So I hope you would have liked the video. If you have liked the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining.